How's it going, everybody? It's time for another Chef Look Cooks, and today we're dipping back into the high class standards that we sort of experienced when we did the sweet pea risotto with fish. Trying to get you some things that you may be seeing on some menus when you go out, maybe some classics that you could impress your friends with. Be like, oh yeah, I learned this from X and X restaurant, but you secretly just learned it from me, and they'll think that you're super cool, and it'll be great. You make more friends. So we're gonna do clams linguine in that vein, a very classic, beautiful thing to have on any menu in the Northeast, or pretty much anywhere where quahogs grow. It's funny, it's clams linguine, but hard shell clams that we're gonna be using today are technically quahogs. And you can call them clams if you want, hard shell clams, but they're best known as quahogs. Just when they get bigger, that's when we call them quahogs. Clams generally refers to the soft shell clam that we would use for a fried clam or for steamers. That's all the same beast. So, but we call it clams linguine because it's just easier to say than quahog linguine. It doesn't really have the same sort of kick to it. So we got some really nice quahogs here. These are littlenecks. Quahogs come in three sizes. There's littleneck, then there's cherrystone, which is a little bit bigger, and then there's chowders or quahogs, which are the big ones that you'd use for chowder generally. Littlenecks are really delicious. There's not tons of meat in here. For this dish, if you can only get cherrystone, which is sometimes the case, feel free to use them. You're going to get a lot more meat and a lot more broth, so that's always nice too. You can even use quahogs or chowders as well, but once they're steamed open, I would probably quarter them up, a lot like we did for our chowder recipe, which you can check out on the YouTube. So that being said, let's get started. As per usual, I have my mise en place. I got my bowl of quahogs. I've got a drain bowl here, so I've got a drain plus a bowl to catch my broth, so we can use that to make a nice sauce. And then over here, I've got some pans, as well as all my ingredients I'm going to be using. A pretty small amount of ingredients here. It's really kind of basic. I actually added the linguiça in just to give it a little bit more pizzazz, but realistically, you don't need that at all. At its base, it's really just the broth from the clams plus butter and a little bit of parsley, and then some sort of acid. A lot of times there is lemon juice involved, but today we're going to be using pickle liquid from a hot pepper. I couldn't find cherry bombs yet again. I keep saying it because I just miss them, but I guess they're only available wholesale on this island. So I got some pepperoncinis, technically kind of a Greek vibe. These are the spicy ones though. I like it spicy, but use whatever you want. You could just use bell peppers or even like literally like a dill pickle if you wanted to. You want something that's acidic, but it's a seasoned acid. I never usually use wine, so I'm using a rice wine vinegar here. It's just a little bit lower acidity, kind of sweet. So it's gonna, once it cooks, it's going to kind of cook into something that resembles wine. So that's why I'm using that. So yeah, without further ado, let's get ourselves started. I'm going to go ahead and tilt you guys down here so you can get a nice view of what I'm doing. And first things first, we want to get our quahogs or clams opened. So we're going to work on that right now. I've got a nice little shallow pan right here with a lid. And we're going to go ahead and start our opening liquid. So that's pretty basic. It's going to be garlic, shallots, thyme, bay leaf, wine, and a little bit of the pickling liquid, as well as one of the peppers. That's going to start that pickling liquid flavor is going to start really right at the beginning. Right here, right now, we're basically layering our flavors. You'll notice there's no thyme or bay in the actual recipe when we go to cook it, and that's because we're going to get all that flavors right here. We don't want a lot of pieces of thyme. We really want that just bright green parsley sort of to be our big sort of shout out to, if it was a restaurant, it'd be, our customers, but in this case, it'd just be your friends. So with the garlic, what I did there, I just sort of turned it over so the root side was facing me, and I just sort of pushed down. That usually makes it sort of break apart like it does into all of these. And we're going to chop all this right now. I'm only going to use half of it for opening and the other half for cooking. But what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to touch you guys down a little more. There we go. That's better. I'm just squishing these with the flat side of my knife. Make sure to keep your hands away from the blade. This is going to do a couple different things. It's going to make it very easy to peel. It's also going to sort of start the process of getting it crushed. And then finally, it's going to release a lot of enzymes. These garlic, they live in the ground, so they're kind of used to getting crushed. When they get crushed like this, they release enzymes to sort of protect themselves. And what that means for you is that you have more bioavailability. It means it's going to be easier for you to digest them, and you're going to get a lot more from them because of this process. So crush your garlic if you got the time. You certainly don't have to, but it really does. It does make it a little bit more healthy for you, and garlic being, you know, so very good for you in the first place. They said it couldn't get better, but it did. This is a very small cloves. Could have picked an easier clove, that's for sure. Any of you who've seen me pick a lot of cloves of garlic know it's not my fastest thing, but there's a lot of different ways to do garlic, and I usually do it by hand, mainly because I really like my hands smelling like garlic. But you can put these in a bowl. That's one way to do this. You put it in 2 metal bowls, sort of upside down, the wrong way, like this kind of, except you know, it has a strainer. You just shake it, and the stainless steel grabs at the skins, and usually peel right off. So that's a decent way to peel them as well. Some people put them in a food processor with the peels on completely and pulse it, and because the peels have a lot more fiber, they don't get blended up. They kind of like rise to the surface. So that's definitely one way to do it if you want to, you know, you're really in a rush. I think that works better if you have a lot of garlic. I wouldn't do it for just one bowl. But if you're doing a whole bunch, maybe you're making a big batch of kimchi or something, that can be a decent way. And especially with something like kimchi, you know, if you get a little bit of the garlic peel in there, it's not going to be the end of the world. That's going to ferment. That peel is going to soften up a bit, and you know, you probably won't even notice it's in there in the first place. So here we go. We're just going to peel some garlic. And this is going to be, like I said, it's going to be pretty fast. These cohogs aren't going to take that long to open up. You know, they're little necks, so they're pretty small. You know, if we're doing chowders, it might take a little bit longer, but these should open pretty fast. We really don't want to overcook them. We want them to be just opened. And I'm probably going to take it off before all of them are open, because you can always shuck them open if we need to. You know, you're not supposed to eat them if they don't open. That's something I hear a lot when people are talking about little necks, but like realistically, if you're getting them fresh from a place that you trust, which I trust these, and I know they're very fresh, they were in the water 3 days ago, you really don't have to worry about that. They're likely all alive. And the ones that don't open are just stubborn, or in this case, we're purposely trying to just barely cook them. So they're not open because we didn't give them enough chance to, you know, get up to a temperature where they died, and their muscles release. So don't worry too much about them staying open. You know, if you've steamed them or boiled them for like a good 10 minutes and they still don't open, that's probably not a quahog. That's probably full of muck or something. And so I would definitely throw that away as well. But it's pretty hard to steam one of these guys and have them not open. They don't have a lot holding them closed once they do die, and the heat does kill them pretty fast. So let's get all this garlic fluff off my fingers, and we'll start chopping. Cool. I guess while we're peeling, may as well do the shallot as well. So if I was using this to present, I would brunoise this, which is just a fancy word for a very small dice, and I'd leave the root end on as a way to sort of keep the shallot together while I chop, slice. But we're really just using this for flavor, so I'm going to cut the root end off right now. I'm going to go ahead and just cut this in half, and we're going to do pretty large chunks, honestly, just enough so that you know, it can lend its flavor and smell, the aromatics to the dish, and cook fairly fast. But I'm not too worried about getting this really small because we're not going to eat this shallot. This shallot is just a flavoring agent. So I'm just going to have these real quick and lay it all out and just do a quick little chop on the shallot. So those are nice and ready to go. And then half of this garlic we are going to eat, and the other half is just going to be for our broth. So I'm going to do a rough chop on it here. And we're going to take out about half of that. Don't want that. About half of that, and that's going to be for our broth. And the other stuff we're going to use in our actual dish. So we're going to chop this a little bit smaller now. And I'm just kind of doing a rocking motion here. Depending on what your knife is like, you might be doing different things here, but you generally just want to try and get as much of this chopped as you can. And it's fairly slippery, so you want to every now and then sort of pile it back up again, so you get as much knife area as possible. And I also really like garlic. Anybody who's watched this program before knows that. So I probably won't chop this super small. If I was in a restaurant setting, I would want this to be as small as possible because it really is designed to be a flavoring agent. I don't want big chunks of garlic in my clams linguine. I want big chunks of clams in my clams linguine. And I don't want anybody trying to look for chunks of clams and accidentally biting into a big piece of garlic and getting a surprise. Now that would be a fabulous surprise for me, but I'm not imposing my will on anyone else. And since we're getting everything ready, go ahead and get this heated up. We're gonna go ahead. It's gonna be pretty fast when this happens. So you want to make sure you're basically ready. I'm gonna get one of these nice big pepperoncinis out of here. That's going to be for our broth here, and I'm just going to get a couple more. Yeah, we'll come back in there later for the garnish. Leave those there for now. This pepperoncini is going to be pretty basic. I'm just going to cut it right down the center from tip to base. That's going in whole because, again, that's just going to be a flavoring agent. We'll pour some of that brine in when the time comes. I'm going to get my bay leaf out, ready to go. Just one big bay leaf. And we're going to need some thyme as well. This pan's getting nice and hot. Let's get our water going too while we're over here. Get that boiling. Put a lid on there. All right, so thyme. I usually like try to get my thyme from Morning Glory, but or my garden if I can. But today I just was there, so I grabbed some organic thyme from the supermarket. And you want a pretty decent amount. It really depends on how much thyme you like. You want 3 sprigs, but a sprig isn't something like that, right? That's kind of sparse for a sprig. You want one that's kind of, yeah, there we go. That's sort of more what I'm talking about when I say a sprig. So I really love thyme, so I'm going to probably use like this whole piece right here. But use how much you like. It's hard to overdo thyme, in my personal opinion. It's a really, really fabulous savory flavor. It adds a lot to pretty much anything you put it in. It's like kind of like pepper in that regard. Not a lot of things it doesn't go with. And so, put as much as you want in there, but I wouldn't use any less than, like 3-ish sprigs. That's this being like a very nice sprig, and another smaller one, because you really do want some of that flavor in there. It's just really nice. Okay, so this is getting warm. I'm going to put our oil in there. Beautiful. Nice. Okay, so oil's in the pan. We're going to go ahead and put our garlic in there. Start that to sort of brown up a little bit. We just want a little bit of color. We're not going as brown as I would for like a stir fry or something where I really want to get that garlic flavor out. I just want to get a little bit of toasty at the edge. Oh, it smells good already. Just to give us a little extra flavor so that garlic has some way to pop, because it's got a lot of things that are going on in here. So we want to make sure it has a chance to shine. Oh, yeah. Really, really nice smell. So you can see it's already sort of starting to get a little brown there. Hopefully you can see starting to get a little brown there. So I'm gonna go for it right now. So we're going in with our thyme and our bay leaf. We're gonna toast those. Should be able to hear it snap. I hope you guys can hear that. Yeah, you hear that? That means you're toasting that thyme. That's what you want to do. The oils from within there getting hot and releasing. I'll put just a touch more oil in here. Turn my fan on. I only have 1 speed on this thing, so. All right, beautiful. That's looking good. Those are nice and toasty. So we're going to go in with our shallots. Start to let those render down. Not render. We're just sort of trying to sweat them down a little bit, get them a bit translucent. Turn my heat off because I am really nice and hot here. Let those cook down a little bit. Start to get a little soft, get a little translucent. It's going to help them to release their flavors. If we put them in there raw like this, they're going to cook while they steam with the quahogs, but we really want them to have that flavor out immediately, so that when that first quahog opens and it meets that broth, it starts to mix with all of our flavors. It gets that shallot flavor infused into it. So, oh yeah. Okay, so while we're here, I'm going to make our wine mixture. That's going to be 2 tablespoons of wine and 2 tablespoons of water, because we're trying to go for a 1/4 cup here. Perfect. You really don't need to cook these that long. You're really just looking for like a little bit of heat, a little bit of translucent. That's pretty good right there. Going in with our pickled peppers, a little bit of that pickling brine. Take it off the heat. And we're going to go right in with our washed quahogs. So what I did with those quahogs, I just rinsed them underwater, and you just want to scrub them with your thumb to get some of the grit off the outside. We're not going to use the bottom of the liquid, so it's going to be fine, but you really don't want any extra grit in there if you can help it.
we got these in here now. We're just gonna stir them up. We're gonna start to heat these up a little bit, get the outsides of the shells nice and warm. What that's gonna mean is that they're not gonna have to steam quite as long. We're basically sort of sauteing them a little bit. We're getting the shells covered with all that nice, delicious flavor. And we are also just starting to get them hot so that when we do add our wine in here in a second, it's going to start to steam. We're going to create a really high pressure environment in there. It shouldn't really take long to open after that. This is beautiful. Already. It's just everything right in there. Little quahogs getting nice and hot and warm. And they don't need to take forever. Basically, just want to get this hot again to the point where, because we just had a lot of cold quahogs in there, we want to get it hot to the point where it sounds like it's sort of frying again. And then once we're there, we'll put our wine in and we'll lid it up. If you've got a clear lid, that's going to be really helpful so you can check on your quahogs. I don't have one, so I'm just going to do what I've got, which is this little lid right here. It's going to work just fine. So that sounds really nice. Nice and hard. We're going in our wine. And we're going to close them up. We're going to forget about them for a bit while those steam. Probably don't need my fan anymore. Let's check, see if we got any questions, and we're going to just jump on forward. Beautiful. Like I said, this is going to be fast and furious, guys. Like, you're going to be surprised 10 minutes from now, we're going to have food. I mean, it's not going to be that quick, but it's going to be really crazy. So because of that, I'm going to just kind of get myself ready for the next step. Got some linguine here. They come in 1 pound packages about. As you can see, I already cut some off. I was testing this out the other night just to make sure my broth was good, and it was. I just didn't want the linguine to be too sort of aggressive, but it worked out really good. I mean, it helps that I really like linguine. So I'm just cutting it into long planks like this. That smells good. And then I'm going to cut those in half both ways to make a sort of half or quarter moon sort of stick, if you will. And then from that, we can cut our centimeter thick pieces. You're basically dicing it into cubes, or at least as close as you can get for with something like this. It being a link and all. And you can peel these if you want. I honestly really like the natural casing, so I'm going to leave it on. But you could totally peel these if you wanted to. It would be a little bit different of a texture. I'm just going to cut this piece off so I get something nice and straight here. Again, you're just going in half, both ways, long ways. Make yourself some little sticks. And then from there, you're cutting about a centimeter. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. Quahogs are going good. Hopefully you guys can see some of that steam coming off of this. That's a good sign. It means we're getting some good steam in there, some good pressure. It's probably not going to take that long at all for them to open up, which is ideal. All right, so there's our linguine. This is going to be a nice little sort of treat, you know, to have. Quahogs can get kind of expensive, whereas, you know, sausage tends to be just a little bit cheaper. So it's a kind of a good way to stretch your protein, stretch your meal, make sure that you have enough, you know, for everyone who might be involved without necessarily having to, you know, go buy more shellfish. They can tend to be a little expensive. We're just going to take a quick peek in here. Let's see where we've gone already. Oh yeah, we already got one open. That's great. Just going to stir them real quick. Make sure we get the rest nice close to that liquid. I don't want to go too much further than this, but I do want a little bit more than just one open. Beautiful. And you go again. They look great. And see, that's that fast. Like, they're littlenecks, so they really don't take a lot of time, especially that when you do heat them up in the pan like we did there, to give them a lot more heat, you know, immediate heat. Got my water. It's starting to get close to boil, which is good. I'm just going to open my linguine. Get that ready to go. I did have a hard time finding linguine. I'm not going to lie. Big difference between linguine and spaghetti. Maybe asking yourself, and I don't know if you're even going to be able to see this. Spaghetti is round. It is a cylinder. Linguine is like an oval cylinder. It's, hopefully you can see that. I don't know. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. I think that's pretty good. It's like an oval, and so because of that, it has more flatness. It's kind of like a blend between spaghetti and a fettuccine. Fettuccine being a lot flatter. But the reason that a flat noodle is really nice for a sauce like this is that we have a very, I'm actually just going to turn this off and let the residual heat finish. I think they're almost done right now. With a flat noodle, we have a sort of liquid sauce. And so liquid sauce wants as much surface area as possible to adhere to. And the sphere is literally like the least surface area you can basically have on a volume. Well, unless you're talking about like an actual sphere, I'm thinking more of a cylinder. Whereas when you flatten that out, you sort of get a lot more. I'm misspeaking now. It's not. Don't talk about geometry. I'm not great at geometry, but it's more flat area. And flat area, liquid tends to rest on better. Whereas a round area, it's going to shed off of it. So we want our sauce to sit on that flat area. So this would work decent with a fettuccine. The problem with the fettuccine is it's just so messy. You want something that's a little bit thicker in that situation because it's almost too flat. All right, so these are beautiful. Oh yeah, perfect. That's what I like to see. Just gonna give you a quick little peek here. So we've got them all open, and they're looking really good. We got lots of broth in there. The ones that are closed are barely closed. They're like sort of peeking out a little bit, so they should be easy enough to open once I get this drained. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now. Just gonna pour this over my sort of my strainer that is over a bowl. That way, all the liquid's going to go into the bowl, and the cohogs are going to be, or littlenecks are going to be right up on top for me to pick through and get all the meats out. Beautiful. That is perfect. Accidentally dropped one. A-okay. Awesome. That's what I like to see. All right, just gonna shake that out there, and then let that strain for a little bit. So just need it to cool so I can get the cohogs out when we come time to plating. My water is getting ready to boil over here. Beautiful. So I've got a big wok here. I really like this because when it comes time, I'm gonna be shaking and tossing my pasta to coat it in the butter. I really like a wok for that. It's just got a really nice, it's deep, but it's got curved sides, so it's easier to do your shake. It's basically just a bowl with a handle, right? You could cook in a bowl. That's basically what cooking in a wok would be like. So I really like that. If you have something like that, that's great. Otherwise, you can always use tongs to stir it, or even just do it in the pot that you cook the pasta in. There's a lot of different ways. It can just get really messy, which is why I like this. It helps with a more even distribution of all the ingredients. With the clams, if I was putting them in, which a lot of people like to do when they're tossing, this would be a better sort of situation for me. I'm so very used to like working in kitchens, so I always want to make sure everybody has the same amount of whatever protein is there. So we're going to probably plate the clams after. But if you're just with your family, or if you're only just making like one or two, you can just put them all in there when we get to that point. All right, so my water is still very close to boiling, which is good. Means we're going to be able to put. So I'm not going to salt my water, mainly because I'm a low salt person. Feel free to salt it if you want. We're talking clams linguine here, though, so our broth is going to be really, really salty already because you're talking about clams, and the clams just have a lot of salt water in them. So I'm not going to salt my water. Feel free to do it if you want to. Every chef in the world would probably tell me I'm wrong, but I don't care. For me, it's all about health. And honestly, for this dish especially, there's so much salt in it anyways, it's really not something that we need to focus on at every stage of the process. If I was doing a lighter sauce or something, that didn't really have a lot of salt in it already on the sauce side, I probably would have salted my water, even with my low salt vibe. So this is boiling really hard, which is good. I'm gonna go ahead and put my linguine in there. Don't break it in half. A lot of people, when I was a kid, I feel like I was taught to break my pasta in half. That is one thing that you should never do. No matter what size your pot is, it will eventually get soft and get in there and cook. So we're gonna do 8 minutes. So I'm gonna do this a quick stir, and I'm gonna go ahead and set my timer right now. And in that 8 minutes, we are going to hopefully be building our sauce here. See, I wasn't joking, guys. It's 5:26, and we're like 15 minutes out from food. We're doing real good. This is a fabulous, like, quick dinner to throw together. It looks like you spent all day on it, but you can literally your party or whoever comes to eat will be able to watch you do it and know you didn't spend all day, but still feel like you did just by eating it and dealing with all those amazingly deep flavors. And part of that is opening our clams like this separate, and part of that is using thyme as an ingredient. Thyme is sort of a fun ingredient because it's called thyme, and it tends to sort of add
a very sort of flavorful element, much like thyme would. You know, if you don't have the thyme, put some thyme in there, and it'll taste like you spent all day on it. You know, it's a very nice, savory, deep flavor. It's something that we usually have to spend a lot of time creating. One of the reasons why I really like thyme, just in general. All right, cool. Pasta's in there, beautiful. Just gonna stir that one more time. And before we drain this, I'm going to hope and pray that I remember to save some of the pasta water. We might not need it. I think we have enough broth, but if you don't have enough broth, the pasta water is a really good way to stretch it. And in that situation, if we do end up putting some broth in there, some pasta water rather, we're gonna take a little taste. So my oil is nice and hot here. I'm gonna go ahead and put my linguiça in there and start that rendering down. We just want some of the fats to come out of the linguiça, help us make a really nice flavor. And then once that happens, we're gonna put the garlic in there and start to cook that as well. The renders, you know, there's a lot of terms I use that maybe aren't in your repertoire. Render tends to be a low heat experience. You want to sort of take your time, let that fat get juicy, but you're not necessarily cooking or like searing the meat. I don't really have a low option here, so it's going to be a pretty quick render. I'm going to turn the heat off, turn it back on, do my best to keep a nice medium temperature. But the render tends to be low, whereas the sear tends to be fairly hot. I'd be searing meat if I was doing something like a braise, but I'd be rendering bacon, let's say, if I was making chowder. Keep going back to the chowder recipe. I love me some quahogs. So yeah, we're just gonna work on the rest of our prep. Realistically, like I said, we're kind of coming together here pretty quick. So I'm gonna get things ready that I'm gonna need when it comes time to actually put this together, because it's gonna be happening fast and I don't want to have to stop in the middle of doing something. So we're gonna get our parsley out here. And we're going to cut a whole bunch of it. I'll probably just do like a half of this bunch. I just keep a bunch like that and just cut into the bunch, and it usually works out pretty well. Ooh, looks like it got a little frozen. That's okay. And I still can only get curly parsley. I don't know where the regular parsley's at. Again, should have probably gone to Morning Glory, but just sort of worked out that I was at Stop and Shop. So, all right, yeah, there we go. And so you'll know that your linguiça is rendering because you'll actually end up with more oil than you started with. That's okay. We still put the oil in there just because we don't want it to stick to your pan, and because it's olive oil, so it's a very nice flavor. So yeah, I got curly parsley, totally fine. Curly parsley tastes just as good as regular parsley. Some people think it probably tastes better. Up to you though. So we're just gonna fold this in on itself, make it really tight little bundle, and we're just gonna try and run our knife over it as small as possible, and that's going to give us a pretty nice dice right off the bat. And this part that was frozen in the middle is the part I'm gonna toss into our pasta, and I'll try and use some of this more dry stuff as our garnish when we get to that. We'll just scrape that over to the side there. Perfect, that looks good. I'm gonna grab a couple pepperoncinis. Take out my linguiça. You should see the linguiça when you first cut it. It's gonna have these like little white specks in it. That's the pieces of fat that we're trying to render out. You'll see them start to go translucent. That's how you know you're doing your job right. So I'm going to do 2 pepperoncinis here, just because I really like them. But you really just need enough to make a bit of a garnish. And for our garnish, what we want is we want nice little strips. So we're going to cut them in half, much like we did before we put them in. Let's take that heat off. And this is starting to render down really nice. I'll show you a piece here in a second so you can kind of get an idea for what we're looking for. So I'm going to cut them in half like this, and I'm going to take the seeds out. Try and be gentle with them if you can. And you want bigger ones if you can get your hands on them, just because you want some decently sized strips. And then from here, we're just going to stack them up. And we're going to try and cut like a chiffonade, like if we were doing like a basil chiffonade. So we're going to stack them up and try and do really nice, thin strips of pepper. And it might not be perfect. That's okay. It's going to be a little bit of color at the end, and it's going to really be a nice little flavor pop when you get a piece of linguine that has one of these stuck to it. So you see, it's just like little strips, much like a little chiffonade of basil, but in this case, it's pepperoncini. All right, beautiful. Pasta's looking good. This linguiça is looking perfect. I'm going to throw the garlic in here, but before I do, I just want to grab you a piece. This one looks good. So you can see it's not really cooked so much. I mean, it's always cooked, but it's just got like a little bit, one edge is a little bit brown, and it's kind of juicy. And you can see the fat in there. Hopefully you can see it sort of changed color. It's got a little bit of red. And that's the paprika that's in
that's in the linguine. So we're gonna put our garlic in here, and we're gonna turn this heat back on because we are rocking right now. And that's gonna cook the garlic, and then we're basically gonna be like, we're there, guys. I don't know. I hope it's okay with everybody that we're actually making amazing time today. I picked a quick one, and I was thinking, what do you have with clams linguine realistically? And it's kind of a self-containing dish. It's one of the nice parts about it. Just couldn't think of a good side to have with it that made sense. As you can see, I've been basically cooking nonstop since we started, and that's really how I love to cook in the first place. And it's one of the reasons why I like this recipe. Is it just keeps you engaged the whole time, and so there wasn't really any space to do anything else, and I didn't want to like tack something at the end. So hey, you get it early night, you can go cook this, eat it out back porch before it gets dark. So we're just cooking this up nice, making sure that garlic starts to get nice and cooked. Oh yeah, beautiful. Pasta's almost done. Awesome. Give that one more stir. I'm gonna go ahead and take my pasta water now while I'm remembering. I want about a cup. I have to get the extra pasta in there too. And this pasta water is really useful too because there's a lot of starch in there from the cooked pasta, so that'll actually help to thicken our sauce when we get there as well. All right, let's just turn this off one more time. So I got my beautiful, beautiful broth here from opening the clams. It looks great. It's got a little bit of an oil slick. Should be kind of dark. Look really, really tasty. We're gonna use 2 cups of that, which is basically what I have right here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put this all in there. Perfect. All right, and at this point, I'm actually just gonna leave that with the heat off for a moment. I got my broth nice and hot. I'm gonna finish picking my clam meats. I'm gonna show you how I do that. And then we are going to finish this off. Perfect. That's my timer for pasta. So we'll go ahead and strain that. You want to take it out as soon as that timer goes off. 8 minutes, no more. All right. Chill out over there. Strain off all that hot water from it. You don't have to rinse it. You actually want the starch in there, but we're gonna try and get that in the pasta within a couple minutes here. So here we are with quahogs. Basic thing. Most of them should look kind of like that. You guys see good? Yeah, you can totally. So that's pretty easy. You just want to pull the clam out. Bam, done. If you can, you want to leave this little adductor muscle behind. We don't want that. That's not tasty. So yeah, most of them should be open. Some of them might not have any quahogs in them, which means you just got to find them. If they cook a little too long, sometimes they come out. And they're little tiny bite-sized morsels. It's part of the reason why I sometimes like to do cherrystones, but littlenecks are just more tasty, to be completely honest. And a nice little bite. So I really like that about them. And realistically, like as much as it is about the meat here, the real thing we wanted from these shellfish was the brine and the broth, because that's where all the delicious flavor really comes in. So what I'm doing here is I'm just sort of ripping them open, using my thumb to just pull between, and usually that leaves the muscle. Don't worry too much about it. Again, they're littlενecks, so they're not gonna be really tough no matter what. So this one was kind of closed. I just went after it there, and you can see he was doing plenty fine. He's dead. He just didn't open for whatever reason, and so I just got to give him a little bit of help. But I'm not using a knife even at all. They're just opening on their own accord because we steamed them very well. If you were hungry too, like eat that muscle. Like the muscle has plenty of nutrients in it. It's just a matter of taste and texture, which is why I'm not using it. If you want to get your money's worth, pick every little bit of meat out of there. It's definitely not gonna affect it in a negative way. Just a matter of kind of how I've done it. So there's one of our escapees. I've got 3 escapees I've seen so far. So we're down to 2 we got to find. See, again, there's a nice little closed one. You just want to sort of get your nails in between it and just sort of open it up a little bit, and it should pop right open. And that's actually the perfect one. You can see they're much more juicy like that. They haven't released as much of their broth, but those are nice little sort of treats to put right on top of the finished product, so we can make sure we get a
a nice little showing. That's like honestly the most perfect little neck you can have when they are barely open. All right, so there should be 2 in here. Got 2, awesome. Let's see if we can find any extras, any stragglers. I'm just gonna eat this pepperoncini. Oh yeah, tastes like the sea. You don't want to eat too much of the veggies though, because sadly, that's where most of the grit ends up. So not super tasty. Just gonna pop that in my what's it called? In my compost, and we're basically ready to go, guys. Let's get this started. So we've got our broth, or our brine rather, in here with our linguiça. The color has changed. This is a classic theme with me. The color has changed because of the linguiça to a little bit darker. That's going to lighten up when we mount the butter in there, but this is going to be a little darker than a classic Clams Linguine, which would be, again, more of a clear sauce. I just don't know how to do anything right as far as fancy schmancy is, you know. I love linguiça so much, and that paprika really does do a great job of adding a lot of flavor, and realistically, that's what I want more than anything else. So I've been keeping my butter in the fridge, which is why you didn't see it out when I did mise en place. Cold butter mounts a lot better into hot liquids. It just takes longer to melt, and because it takes longer to melt, you end up getting, the milk solids and fats don't separate as much. So we're going to use half of the stick about. We're going to cut it into small pieces. So we're going to tab it up like this, and then we're going to take the tabs and we'll cut them in half. And we're going to save 3 of these little guys to put in at the last bit. As we're doing this here, whoops, drop this on the ground. So our broth is basically boiling. I don't want it to be boiling too hard, but that's okay. I'm going to drop my pieces of butter in there as I swirl it about like this. And what that's going to do, it's going to make the butter move around, get really nice, and emulsified into that broth. And then it will be mounted, as they say. You should see your broth start to change color as you go. It's going to go, in my case, from a darker brown to a much lighter sort of amber color. And that's how you know you're doing it right. If you start to see an oil slick or anything like that, you're probably putting the butter in either too fast, or maybe you have warm butter. But the oil slick that was on there should get incorporated with this butter. The milk fat strands starting to sort of grab it and connect it with the liquid that's in there. And it should start to feel a little thicker in your hands too as you do this. That's good. That's what we want. We want a thicker sauce. That's what the butter is doing, adding that fat in there, but it's long strand fats, and so it's just acting as a thickener agent, an emulsifier, if you will. And hopefully, if we need to, put a little pasta water in there, the starch in that will help bond to that as well. So this is looking really good. I'm just going to start taking off the heat here as I put this in. Where'd my spoon go? Oh, there it is. So if you guys remember what they looked like before, I'm just going to show you what it looks like now that there's butter in there. The color's a little bit lighter. Hopefully you can see that. Color's a little bit lighter, and it just looks kind of more appealing too at this point. All right, great. So we're going to go right in with our pasta. Here we go. Get in there. I'm going to go ahead and just turn this off because I do have a lot of residuals in here. I don't think I'm going to need any more. We're going to go ahead and just stir that. We're going to do a little shaky shake. Yeah, there we go. And again, this is something you can learn. Just practice it. What you want to do is you want to push away from yourself, and then you're not trying to push it out of the pan, but it's going to feel like that. But then before it gets out of the pan, you're just going to sort of pull back towards yourself and catch it. And this is a really good way to stir and mix things. Beautiful. So I'm just going to look at the bottom here. It looks like we are running a little low on liquid, so I'm going to put a little bit of that pasta water in there. That's going to help it to cook more, because remember, we cooked this only 8 minutes. It needs 12. We're only going to cook it 10 minutes all said, because it's going to have some time to finish cooking at the table, before everybody devours it and such. So we're not too worried about that. And right now your pasta shouldn't look like really much more than just pasta with a bunch of meat in it. This dish is a pretty basic one. It really is more about the flavor than anything else. Obviously we want it to look nice, but the flavor is really what we've been trying to achieve this entire time. Beautiful. Looks very nice. And
You just want to sort of peek in the bottom and make sure you don't want a lot of liquid. You just want, you know, enough in there that it's not in a dry pan. Because you want this, you don't want tons of broth left over. That broth should be getting cooked into the pasta right now, finishing its cooking process and flavoring the pasta. So now the pasta, not only will the pasta be in a little bit of broth, but it also it's absorbing more. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little more in there. I'm just going to put the rest of this cup in, honestly. I think it's going to take it all. And I'm just going to cook this down one more time. So not only will it be sitting in a little bit of broth, but it's going to have cooked in that broth. And so it's going to taste just exactly like it. And, you know, sometimes you can get a dish like this and it can feel like it's dry. And we're not going to have that problem here because the noodles themselves are going to be saturated with that sauce. So we're going to go ahead and just take a little try of this pasta. See how done it is. I'm going to turn that heat off for sure now. We're just looking for if it's still al dente. Oh, it's so good. Tastes like clams, tastes like linguiça. Linguiça is definitely an intense flavor here, but the clams are coming through beautiful in the end. That's almost done. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to take our parsley and put most of it in there, just reserving some for garnish. Put the last of our butter in there. We're going to go ahead and toss this up. Need a little bit of stirring, I think, here. And that butter is going to melt in. Make sure we have just a little bit more sauce there at the end, and really start to coat those noodles with a really nice sheen. Basically, sort of laminating them at this point because you've got the butter that has been absorbed into them onto its surface. And this is just a little bit of a last decadence. And you don't have to use this much butter. I don't often use this much butter. I'm kind of a lower butter user, but for a dish like this, the butter is really one of the sort of important parts. You can see now, hopefully, that sauce is nice and thick. None is left at the bottom. It's still saucy, but it's not a soup. You know, it's not a soup with pasta. And it's a dish. That sauce has stuck. That last butter has really finished thickening it up there because it's so cold, and it's just fully coating these noodles right now, which is exactly what we want. Take you a quick look at that. Looks delicious. I'm so excited. Absolutely perfect. Couldn't have asked for a better turnout, honestly. It looks really good. And I'm done in an insanely short amount of time, 15 minutes to spare. So I like a shallow bowl for this as far as plating is concerned. Which, lucky for me, my favorite bowl is a shallow bowl. So this is what we're going to use today to plate this Clams Linguine. And we're going to make it look real, real pretty. So you can use tongs if you want. I'll probably just use a fork here right now, honestly. Maybe I'll use tongs. It's tough to plate pasta. We're going to see if we can pull off this technique that I used to do on the line. So you want to take your tongs. You want to try and get some of the chunks if you can. This is supposed to be about 4 portions, 4 healthy humans. What you want to do is you want to think about divide it into 4, take that whole corner sort of in your tongs, and you want to twist them like this. And you're making sort of a nest, if you can, of pasta. So we're going to see how this goes. I don't think I got enough pasta. That's pretty good. So you got a little nest there, right? And you're going to take that nest over to your plate, and you're just going to release the tongs. You should get a nice little pile. I didn't grab enough pasta that first time. So we're going to do that one more time. Hold over there. Perfect. So now we lost some of the chunks, and that tends to be one of the problems with using tongs for serving pasta, is you usually lose a lot of the chunks. So make sure you go back in there, get some of that linguiça, put it all around your dish. Beautiful. That looks great. And from there, it's really just a matter of sort of finishing it off. And for us, that means grabbing some of these beautiful clams, quahogs. We're doing 6, so you just want to sort of place them in there. Maybe shove one like down into the pasta for someone to find later. Hopefully, if you're serving this to your friends, give them a fork and a spoon and let them sort of toss it themselves when it gets to the plate. So we got that. A little bit of nice parsley on top, just for a little extra pizzazz. And then on top of the parsley are beautiful little colors here of a pickled pepper. That's going to be a really nice sort of flavor bomb when we get in there. And then last but not least, if you have a squeeze bottle, it's really, really helpful right here. I don't have a squeeze bottle, so I'm just going to use a spoon. just going to put about a teaspoon of that pepper juice in a spoon and just sort of drizzle it over the top. That's going to add us a nice little vinegary bite. It's going to go really well with all that fat from the butter that we put in there. And guys, we fully did it. 5:47. First time in the history of Chef Look Cooks. I'm done early. We've got some beautiful clams linguine for you all to devour.
I don't think I've ever been so jealous of your dinner before, Chris.
Of my bowl.
Yeah, that looks phenomenal.
It is the most perfect bowl of.
It really is.
Now you can put cheese on this if you want, but like, let's be honest, you doesn't need it. This clams linguine is one of probably the most perfectly balanced dishes as far as acid, fat, flavor. It doesn't really need any more. The clam juice, the salt, everything. It seasons itself. Like I didn't season the pasta water, and this pasta is perfect. It doesn't need any. So I'm happy I didn't season the salt with the water. But the only thing you could possibly probably do to make this better would be to cook the pasta in seawater, which would be absolutely delicious and a fun thing to do on the beach someday. That looks amazing, beautiful. Yeah, guys, thanks for showing up for our fastest Chef Look Cooks in existence, a record that will never be met ever again. And I am sticking to it. I will be. I can almost guarantee next time is going to be about an hour and 15. Next time is going to be really fun. It's going to be a little bit of an ode to summer, a goodbye to our fallen produce and such, a bit of a harvest experience. But I doubt any of you are going to know exactly what to expect. But prepare for some harvest celebration mixed with a little bit of longing for next summer and the summer that's passed. But always check out Edgartown Library YouTube for all of our past programs. And you can check out Trash Panda EPL. Nothing like this on there at all, but actually I think the chowder might be on there. But that's just a fun place to check out. And that's Trash Panda EPL, Edgartown Public Library, .wordpress.com. And that's just a fun little archive of all sorts of cool stuff. But this video should be up on the YouTube. Tell your friends they can come watch it. Probably up in the next week or so. And then tune in next month for a fun little fusion experience, harvest fusion. I don't know how to. It's gonna be great. Sign up for the newsletter. I cannot wait to drop it. It's gonna be really good.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. This was wonderful. This is the planned next dinner party I have.
Oh yeah,
100%. Yeah, and it's quick. That's what
You can do it at the dinner party. Give the claims to people to pick, and just like call it a day.
Yeah. Perfect.
All right, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thanks for
good night.